Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you might be joining from. I am HR Funk, and this is my firing line. This is the online show that's completely driven by you, your questions, and your comments. Otherwise, Chewy and I would just be sitting here continuing to watch the unending party on Fox News. I'm going to do something a little bit different with the show today. Typically, I don't wander too far into the realm of politics, but I'm going to deviate from that at least a little bit today. Now, I'll still take any questions on firearms or anything that all of you want to discuss. But I have been so enjoying the past week and sort of just the mood of the country in the wake of the elections last Tuesday. And I want to take some time to just enjoy that for all of you. By all means, anything you want to say, jump in with that. Everyone is welcome, even people with dissenting opinions. I don't care. Everyone is welcome to their opinion, particularly when it comes to politics. That's what makes this country great. Before we get to that, though, a couple of things. This past week, I have been busy as a bee, and some of you might have noticed that there was no Wednesday morning video today, which is another part of the reason that I'm doing the live stream. Over the course of the past week, this is my third live stream. I had two videos that I produced. I had a short. I had a appearance that I did at House of Pain Armory on Monday for Veterans Day, and I'm feeling run a little bit ragged. And I've been doing other things that have not made it to the screen yet. I've got an optic in my freezer downstairs right now, waiting for 24 hours to tick by to see if that thing is still working. So stay tuned for that video coming up in the future. And in any case, like I said, just I thought it might be fun today, since we didn't have the Wednesday morning premiere video, to just sit and shoot the breeze a little while, and all of us can sort of enjoy this party atmosphere that there has been over the course of this past 7 days. And in the house so far, we've got Marvin Turner. I know he was here before. Oh, I wanted to mention that quickly too. Something happened when I started the live stream. I set it all up to go at about 7:45 or so, and I started getting ready. I still had to take a shower and one thing and another. And when I came back in here, it seemed like it had stopped. I don't know what happened. Now, it doesn't escape my attention that this live stream has Trump in the title, and all of a sudden there was some kind of a glitch. But I had to restart it. So for any of you that had signed on for the initial live stream and all of a sudden it just wasn't there, and you had to find this one, first off, thanks for coming back. But that's the reason I had to restart the stream, to make sure that it was actually going to go out. And I wasn't going to spend however long just sitting here talking to myself and having something that nobody could ever watch. Also, I'm using a new camera today, and at least on my end, it looks great. I got a new iPhone a couple of weeks ago, and I'm using the iPhone camera plugged into my computer, and it's what is now looking at me. So you notice the angle that is directed towards me is a little bit different. But at least on my end, it looks fantastic. So let me know what things look like out there to all of you. I know my computer now, this is a 2019, I think, iMac. So it's ancient in terms of computer years. But one of the things about iMacs is they just go on and on and on forever and ever and ever, and never seem to wear out. So it still does everything I want to do for video editing, for anything else I want to do on the computer. It works just fine. But the camera is probably the biggest thing that I see on here that just is not that great these days. I think the newer iMacs that are out there have a lot better cameras. But now that I'm able to plug my phone in here and get what I think looks like a pretty decent image going out to all of you, I think I'll be able to continue using this computer for even longer. So that's great. That'll save me whatever, couple $1,000 on a new computer. Anyway, I started to introduce everyone. We've got Marv Turner. I know he was here before. Happy Hunter is here. Good morning to you. Bill 1717. Captain Roy Kiefer is in the house. Rich Powers is here. Art Grote. Todd Gillison. Marv's just waiting for all the fools in Hollywood to actually leave the country. Yeah, we'll get into all that. We'll talk about that. Bill Walters is here. Walters. Make sure I'm pronouncing your last name right. Travis is here. Ohio Gun Runner. Jeff Tim made it up from Florida. And I think that's everyone so far. According to the ticker, we've got 28 people in here, which is pretty good for a Wednesday morning. If you haven't said hi yet, be sure to chime in. And let me get the banner up here quickly for everyone. If you want to join via email, or excuse me, join the show, send me an email to hrfunksmail@gmail.com. I will email you a link to the show and it will walk you through the process and you can come on and we can actually have a discussion back and forth here on the screen. Just remember, if you join with your camera and your microphone, everybody in the world potentially can see you. So make sure that you don't have any breakfast left on your face and make sure you have clothes arranged the way you wanted and actually are on and all of that before you activate the camera. And let me jump back over here. I guess I'll kick things off uh, with the difference that I noticed this week. It's now been a week. It was a week ago today that I woke up in the morning and it was such a different experience from what we had seen 4 years earlier. And if we dial back the clock to 2020, now we saw a lot of things in 2020 that were just weird that I think it's accurate to say we've never seen in this country before. If somebody had told me in 2017 or something, somewhere around there, hey, in a couple of years, everybody in the United States is going to be wearing a face mask because they're going to be worried about catching some disease, I would have said, you're crazy. No, Americans are never going to just voluntarily, and I guess we didn't voluntarily, but wear these silly face mask things. I would have thought that person was crazy. But 2020 was so bizarre. We had cities in flames and one thing and another. But I remember going to sleep that Tuesday night back in 2020, and I had been watching the election results up until midnight or so. I don't remember exactly what time. And everything was looking pretty good for Donald Trump up to about that time. But I noticed that the tally just sort of stopped somewhere around 11 o'clock, 11:30, midnight, something like that. And I thought, all right, well, they're just doing whatever they do to calculate votes and make sure they're getting an accurate count. So this is a good time for me to go to sleep. So I woke up the next morning, and the first thing that caught my attention, and I usually wake up about 5 o'clock ish, and I woke up and I looked at the TV, and the first thing I noticed is the numbers hadn't changed at all since I'd gone to sleep. And I thought, okay, that's weird. I don't remember ever seeing that before. And then when they started to change, it was completely the reverse of what we had seen with the results coming in the night before. So that was just another one of those things in 2020 we had never seen before. Everything from that point on seemed to go Joe Biden's way. And of course, he was ultimately declared president after that election. So this time around, last Tuesday, I was afraid to go to sleep. I stayed up to like 1 o'clock in the morning, watching the election results roll in. And I'm thinking, is it safe to go to sleep yet? Is it safe to go to sleep? Finally, about 1:30 or so, I couldn't keep my eyes open any longer. So I went to sleep, and it was so nice when I woke up a week ago today and things had progressed in a logical manner. Donald Trump had already been declared the winner at that point, I believe. I think the electoral votes had already tabulated up to the point where he had been declared winner, even though there were several states where the results had not come in yet. By the way, you people in Arizona, what? I'm imagining. How many of you have seen the movie Zootopia? Remember the character Flash? That's a sloth, and he moves like this when he's doing things. That's who I envision counting votes in Arizona. It's like, what in the world? And there's some of the other states that aren't too far behind. But anyway, let me get back here to some of your comments. We've got Art Grote. I'm not sure if I welcomed him before. Todd Gillison in from Missouri. And I know I saw some comments in here. Marv Turner, I find it humorous that there's a banner across the bottom of the screen saying the AP has called the presidential race for Trump. Yes, it needs to stay there. Audio and video are fine. Good. Microphone is not. Yeah, maybe I can move that down a little bit. As long as you can still hear me. I don't know. Maybe some of you might put it back up there, kind of block some of the view. Happy Hunter, the streets are calm, quiet, and the only melting down has been on social media, which is I know, and I was a little worried about that. I was concerned that if the results went in favor of Donald Trump, we might once again see cities in flame and all that kind of thing. But it not only has that not happened, uh, I think first there was a collective sigh of relief. I know Mimi said something to me right after the election that she says, "I'm so relieved and so happy." And I said, right now, this was last Wednesday morning. I said, right now, I'm just relieved. I'll be happy. I'm happy today, but at first, I was just relieved, and I think we were all able to take that collective sigh of relief and think, all right, it's over. Now we can move past this and get on with trying to put the country back in order, which is already happening. And some of the things, some of the announcements that have been made for the various cabinet positions, Tom Homan as border czar, that's unlike our last border czar. I think we might actually see some things being done to help secure the border and maybe try to undo some of the things that have taken place over the course of the last 4 years. But we've got him, Pete Hegseth, nominated as Secretary of Defense. There was one that came out of the blue, but we'll wait and see what happens with that. Um, who else? This Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I got to imagine if you know those two are going to be heading up a department that's sole mission is to look for inefficiency in government and root that out and try to change it. If you're somebody that dresses in women's clothing and steals luggage for a living, but you happen to be getting a government check, you're probably not feeling real secure in your future employment as of this morning. And Donald Trump is on his way to meet with Joe Biden today. How about that? Flying up from Mar-a-Lago to the White House. Uh, wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall in that meeting? So back over to the comments here. Cheap's Cafe is here. Glad you made it, JC. JJJJR or JJJR. One day history will record 2020 was a sham. It will all come out in the white. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see over the course of the next several years what might come out now in retrospect about 2020. It's not going to undo anything. And I don't know if you're Donald Trump, and I'll throw this out to the group so you can all jump in with whatever you thought. If you're Donald Trump and you're taking over as president and you are trying to set things right in the country again, and all of a sudden you get all kinds of information talking about the funny business that went on during 2020, do you make that known? Do you say to everybody, here's what they did and risk some sort of retribution or backlash at the left over that? Or do you say, you know what, it's all over, it's in the past, we're moving on, we're not going to put that out? What do you guys think? Is that something that should be thrown out there or not? Roy Kiefer, the election results warm my all-American heart. Yes, they do, mine as well. But now actual performance is mandatory. Certainly, absolutely. It's time now to roll up the sleeves, get to work. By the way, one more thing along that with that relief feeling. How many of you are relieved at the idea we're not going to have to listen to the Kamala Harris cackle over the course of the next 4 years? I mean, everything else aside, just imagine that meeting between Xi Jinping and Kamala Harris. Uh, where she's laughing away and talking about whatever, and she's like, "Yeah, just a minute, Madam President, just go start bombing them right now." I'm sorry, what were you saying? ah, anyway, I have been talking too much and not responding to enough of your comments. Happy Hunter also felt relieved. No more word salads. Yes, absolutely. Or at least not from and another person I am going to be so glad to see going is the press secretary. Her name just went right out of my mind. Karine Jean-Pierre. that arrogance that comes across from her and condescension. I will be so glad when somebody else is in there hosting those press briefings from the White House. Rabbi is here. How you doing, Rabbi? Marv Turner saw something saying they have identified 2 trillion that can be cut from federal spending. Even imagine if it's only half of that, or a fraction of that. Still, that much money that currently is just being wasted, that potentially they can now put toward more constructive measures like, oh, I don't know, building a wall, putting back into the military to help rebuild the military, to try to buy back some of the equipment that was left in Afghanistan after the botched withdrawal, all of that type of thing. SOS. I knew a luggage thief back in the late 80s, always trying to fence stuff until he was arrested. And in the newspaper, did anyone know that? What? Okay. So apparently that wasn't the luggage thief I was talking about, but all right. Corpus Biker, good morning, Texas, from Texas. Hopefully now states will become, more states will become free states. Hopefully so. And that's another thing. Hopefully a lot of this onslaught, attack, whatever you want to call it, directed at the Second Amendment, hopefully that will start getting rolled back. And some of the things like the um, pistol brace thing will finally be put to rest. Yes, hopefully, everybody keeping their fingers crossed. But things are looking a lot brighter today than they were just over a week ago. Rabbi, he's going for broke. That's what it looks like. And again, with the cabinet positions that he's already made nominations for, it's looking like he is not messing around. Jeeps Cafe, let's focus on the future and get our country on the right path. Agreed. Marv Turner, how much TV airtime do you think she will get moving forward? I assume you're talking about Kamala Harris. Probably almost zero, with the exception maybe of during the inauguration when they all have to stand up there together. By the way, did you hear this about the first? Well, the is she the first lady elect? The former first lady, well, Melania Trump, refused to go to the traditional meeting with the current first lady because of the whole Mar-a-Lago search warrant thing, which I can't really blame her for. But yeah, I got to believe that when they're standing together during the inauguration, they're probably going to be as far apart as they can get on the stage, because there certainly does not appear to be any love lost there. Happy Hunter, I don't think a single other leader would be able to take her seriously. Would it have been worse than Joe? So you know what? That's a great question too, because with Joe stumbling and mumbling and fumbling and everything that's going on with him, and you know what, Joe, I kind of hate to make fun of him because he's just, it's not fun making fun of elderly people who are having issues that all of us could potentially have someday. But holy smokes, the cover up and the way the media tried to portray him as, oh yeah, he's sitting in the Oval Office right now doing advanced mathematics and figuring out the budget with pencil and paper and all that kind of thing. Man, only to turn around a few days later and say, "Oh no, Joe can't be president," after the after the debate with Donald Trump. And oh, Kamala, yeah, she's the one. She can. Oh man. Mark Swede Barrett, thank you for your service. Thank you. Uh, Move on, and we need to get our country back on track. Very relieved that we will not go communist. So am I. The Harris cackle needs to be weaponized against our enemies. Trump Vance win was his retribution. That's what he was saying during the campaign. JC could not stand Kamala. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Could not stand Kamala speak. Had to turn her off when the cackle started. Yeah, I know what you mean. Corinne Jean Pierre, her nickname is Blinky. I never heard that one. My mute button really got to work out. Jeff Tim, do you know any Secret Service agents? As a matter of fact, I know a young man who was an attorney here locally and joined the Secret Service. I assume he is still working there. He is the only Secret Service agent, if he is still there, that I know. I have only had a couple of times during the course of my career that I ever worked with the Secret Service, and I really can't say that I know any of the agents that we worked with. Uh, Going on, I've seen a complaint that when going from Treasury to Homeland, the Secret Service doubled the number of supervisors and appointed officials. I don't know. That might be true. I have no idea. Happy Hunter KGP is awful. I agree. Will literally tell people that they're imagining things. It's a quote from own self previously. Yeah. I get what you're saying. I know. She'll stand there and just she gives a new meaning, new emphasis to the term gaslighting. Old and moldy, greetings to you from Middle Tennessee, or in Middle Tennessee. Ken Paxton for U.S. Attorney General. Yakinator bought a new Ruger Mini 14 and getting 1.5 to 2.5 minutes of angle. Had one in 1982, had a lot of fun with it, but these new Mini 14s are a big improvement. Heavier barrel and better accuracy. I had a Mini not long after I got out of the Marine Corps. It was probably the first long gun that I bought after I started my law enforcement career. Nice rifle, but that was the thing I noticed about it. It just I was used to the accuracy of the M16 when I was in the Marine Corps, and it just did not exist with the Mini 14. Now, at any sort of close to medium range, it was minute a bad guy accurate. But I ended up trading that on an AR not too long after, and I kind of wish I still had it. Overall, it was a nice rifle. It just was not a real accurate rifle. So I'm glad that they've dialed up the accuracy on those some. Lynn Kramer, it's time to stop giving our treasure away to countries that hate us. I agree. AKmer 47, good morning from your patrol car. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining. Have a safe day out there. Be careful. And I hope nobody minds that you're watching the show while you're working, or at least listening to it. Rabbi, I'm surprised they didn't arrest Donald Trump for assault because he beat Kamala so bad. Yeah, I know. That would be the next thing. It wasn't fair. Marv Turner, Joe's just old now, but he's always been a crook. Well, I know what you mean. Always been Joe. Joe's got to be Joe. Anonymous F, I keep asking people what they think about President Harris just to hear them tell me she. I posted a joke like that, I guess yesterday, or no, it was on Veterans Day. I posted it. So if you haven't seen that, go to the community post section on my channel page. You'll be able to read that joke. Roy Kiefer, incidentally, I suggest there will be no government efficiency department. Instead, it'll be part of the White House staff. Uh, yeah, I probably misstated that because I heard something along those lines too. It's not really going to be a government agency. It's going to be, yes, sort of a advisor position to the president, or advisory position to the president. Trump says he will sign into law reciprocity for carrying a gun state to state. I saw something about that a day or two ago. I don't know any details. It would be nice if that finally happened, and just like driver's licenses are recognized in all states, that there are reciprocal agreements or reciprocity in every state for carrying concealed firearm. It's time for that to happen. course, that's one of those things. Did you see the lineup of state attorney generals and governors from blue states over the course of the last several days talking about how they're going to fight with every fiber of their being to keep, basically, to keep Donald Trump from doing anything Donald Trump says he's going to do? So I can imagine in the Illinois and the New Yorks and places like that, where if the federal government is saying you have to recognize individuals' ability to carry a concealed weapon while they're in your state, they're just being all sorts of caterwauling, and there will be weird regulations. And if you go into New York, you're only going to be able to carry a firearm with, what is it, 7 rounds in the magazine or something like that. So there will be a lot of it's going to be a big fight ahead, I think, for a lot of those kind of things. Rabbi, the Mini 14 is terribly inaccurate. There's a show in the 1980s about Green Berets turned mercenaries who couldn't. I think I remember that show. The A something, where they would fire 5,000 rounds in every episode and never hit anybody. Here's some rumors of Brandon Herrera being ATF director. Well, we'll have to wait and see. Rabbi, I'm so sick of them placing terrible candidates and blaming misogyny for their loss. Yeah. And did you see that a week or so, just a day or so after the election, all the people up, this is all basically all men were misogynists. And, they didn't matter what group you were, white men, black men, Asian men, Hispanic men, all of that. And I actually predicted that when Kamala Harris was appointed, anointed, whatever, as the Democrat candidate. I said, if anything doesn't go her way, it's going to be blamed on sexism and racism. And certainly in the days immediately following the election, that's exactly what was going on. Jeeps Cafe signing off. Got to go to work. Thanks for joining, JC. Have a great day. Bob, end all mail-in voting and drop box. How do we still have drop boxes for voting ballots, for our ballots for elections, that people can drop an incendiary device in or whatever and burn them all up? And a ballot box in 2024, unbelievable. Travis, restoring the Second Amendment won't be able to happen. Won't be able to happen all that much if the Senate Majority Leader position goes to either of the three favorites. So far, last vote is today. Yeah, and who knows how that's going to end up going. It doesn't seem to be a front runner out of any of the three. Chris 1911 is here. Thanks for joining, Chris, with his customary greeting. And the A-Team magic bullets that never ricocheted. Mark Swede Barrett, God bless the United States of God bless America. God bless Americans who love their country. Have a great day. The holidays will be extra special this year. Yes, they will. Terry Barnes, the mayor of Chicago, said she will protect all illegals in the city while bashing Trump. Well, there's a shock. Gordo Tortuga is here. Thanks for joining, Gordo. Anonymous F, what do you think of the 41 Magnum for self-defense? I watch a lot of active self-protection channel and talking to people. Oh, wait a second. And people take multiple hits from lesser calibers. I figure one powerful round beats 5 smaller. To answer the first part of your question, I certainly don't want to be shot with a 41 Magnum. Its power is greater than that of the 357, not quite up to the level of 44. If we look back at some of the well-known figures from the past, like Elmer Keith was a big proponent of the 41 Magnum for law enforcement work. Now, the load that they were advocating for law enforcement was a downloaded version of the 41 Magnum. It would have probably been the equivalent to what we might call a 41 Special. I want to say it was in the 900, 1,000 feet per second range with something like a 180 or a 200 grain bullet, um, which is pretty close to what we eventually got with the 40 Smith and Wesson. So I think the 41 Magnum is a decent defensive caliber or cartridge rather. Now, to the other part of what you said, handguns in general are not very reliable stoppers. Now, that's not to say they're not lethal or they won't kill, but as far as stopping somebody in their tracks, putting all your pinning all your hopes to one shot from any handgun cartridge is not something I'm comfortable with. If it happens, great, fantastic, but I wouldn't expect that. Which is why you see going back in law enforcement training to at least the 1970s, the idea of firing a controlled pair, or initially it was called the double tap, then that got dialed back to controlled pair. So you have two shots on target, hopefully to double your chances of stopping the threat. But when you're talking about really stopping somebody, we're into the realm of rifles and shotguns, in my opinion. And other people will have differing opinions on that, I'm sure. Ben Crane is here. How you doing, Ben? Good morning to you. Gunmetal Guy USA is here. Howdy to you. Rabbi, my cousin retired at LEO, volunteered at the polls just so she knew herself there was integrity at the site. Lots of people did. We need to stay ever vigilant. Yeah, Mimi is a poll worker. She actually worked the polls last Tuesday. She got there at something like 4:30 in the morning and didn't get home until about 10:30 that night. So she was actually there on site. Um, she was working. She wasn't there specifically to make sure no funny business was going on, but obviously, had she seen anything, she would have been the first one to blow a whistle on that. And I think too, because of all of the doubt associated with the last presidential election in 2020, steps were taken this time around to try to make sure there were no shenanigans going on. And I think the way things progressed, as I talked about a little while ago on the show, the way things progressed this time around really casts even more of a shadow of suspicion on the 2020 results because it was just so weird. I'm usually not the person who is ready to jump on board with any kind of a conspiracy theory, but wow, that's one that just doesn't add up, literally. Bob, you can never make the Second Amendment national when you have governors like Maura Healey who installs unconstitutional firearm laws. The first thing I would say, Bob, I understand what you're saying, but the Second Amendment already is national. It's our Second Amendment to the national Constitution. So, I mean, it is as national as it can get. What you have is individual states that do things that are approved by the courts that allow that to happen. Uh, and the courts and the Supreme Court justice nominations, et cetera, and all of the appellate court nominations are every bit as important as the presidential election. And having Donald Trump in a position to make some of those nominations is only going to hopefully start to turn around some of those things we've seen with these states that have passed some laws that you look at and you go, how on earth could they get that through? And Jeff Tim is talking to Anonymous F about the 41 Magnum. Mr. Goldenrod, holidays were great except for those that have been disinvited because of politics. If I get disinvited anywhere, I'm probably going to be happier for it. Kenneth Garrett, good morning to you. Less election rigging this time. Yeah, I doubt that all The funny business going on during the election was completely eradicated, but certainly there was less of it. I would agree. Yamil R. Sued. I'm probably going to pronounce your last name wrong. Is it Sued or Sued? Anyway, good morning to you. Thank you for joining. All's at full. 15 million voters disappeared. It's all those people in the cemetery that weren't voting this year. Ben Crane, it does seem like about 13 million people. Yes, it does. This election was a reckoning. I agree. User 579, what is your opinion on the 9 versus 40 versus 357 SIG for self-defense? With a good defensive load, they're all effective cartridges. So there's really not a bad one in that mix. When I get questions like this, and part of the reason, if you've seen some of the water jug testing that I've been doing with defensive cartridges lately, it's to get information out there so all of you can hopefully make an informed decision. And I said this in the last video that I made along those lines. It really isn't important what I say about your defensive cartridge or what somebody else says about your defensive cartridge. What's important is that you have confidence in whatever you're carrying. So I've been making those videos, and the nice thing about the water jug thing is anybody can do it. All you got to do is get yourself some jugs, fill them up with water, go out, shoot a bullet into there. You can look and see how far the bullet penetrated. Use that sheet to calculate what the uh, penetration would have been in ballistic gel. You can look at the expanded diameter. You can look at retained weight, and pick something that you are going to be confident in carrying, and then practice with that firearm or that cartridge so that you can put effective shots on target in the unfortunate event that you would need to use it for defending yourself or someone else. Um, but with those three, like I said, with the right defensive load, all of them are good, effective cartridges. KJP nickname is Sweet Potatoes. Buford Pusser carried a 41 Remington Magnum. I don't think I knew that. For some reason I was thinking he had a Model 27 357, but I'm not a Buford Pusser whatever scholar, so I can't say with any authority. John G is here. Good morning to you, John. Hope you're having a great day. Yamil is pronounced with a J, so it's Jamil. Arabic name spelled as so Jamil. Jamil Sued. Okay. I will try to get that right. Thank you for correcting my pronunciation. Tanner 6454. I'm getting a feeling that this is the calm before the storm vibe from the I know what you mean. I know what you're getting at. The problem they're going to have is there's clearly a majority of Americans who want a different government than we've had this past 4 years. So I think what they're going to be is a noisy minority, but I don't think they're other than maybe for entertainment value. Now, of course, if they resort to violence or something like that, that's a different matter entirely. But I think for the most part, they're just going to make a lot of noise, and there's going to be great wailing and gnashing of teeth, but they can pretty easily be ignored because how do you dispute what we saw in last week's election? Not only with the presidential election, but the House and the Senate, and overwhelmingly governors across the United States are Republicans. So I just don't know how do you protest that other than just saying I don't like it. Bob, who watched The View on November? I could not bring myself to watch that. I saw some clips from it that they showed on some other TV shows, but I can't bring myself to watch The View. Music Maddie 67. I think most people are starting to take notice of blue states leaning red are the only ones having trouble counting the votes in a timely manner. Yes, I thought the same thing. These quote unquote battleground or blue wave states, or whatever you want to call them, or blue wall states, are the ones where all of a sudden, when the election results started going toward Donald Trump, that all of a sudden the counting got slower and slower. And so I did notice that. Chris 1911, have a Model 57 no dash nickel 8 3/8 inch in a presentation box. How about that's a nice revolver? You could not pay me to watch The View. That's kind of where I am. Travis, if we're up to you, Smith& Wesson 5903 SSV or 1086, leaning toward the 1086, and it's just jumped. Hold on a second. Uh, but I know you're partial to the SSVs. I think, and I'm going to go outside of the parameters of your question just a little bit. The handgun that I carried on duty for a number of years was a 5943 SSV. So it was the shorter, it had the 6900 series slide and barrel on the 5900 series frame, and it had the alloy frame and all that. 15 shot magazines, which nowadays you can get magazines, I think, are 17 rounds for that handgun. So long as I could choose the ammunition that I wanted, I would go with that one. It's a very easy to carry firearm. It's easy to shoot. I think Smith& Wesson made the best double action only of any of the major companies that churned out a DAO pistol back during the 1990s. I think Smith's was the best. It was the smoothest. It was actually they redesigned the trigger and the sear, and I think the trigger bar, or the drawbar rather, to give it a shorter length of pull. So it's a short, light double action pull. And I really like that handgun. I don't shoot it very often because the one that I have was unfired before I bought it. So I don't want to run the risk of anything happening to it. I really don't want it to start looking beat up or anything like that. I've got a few spare parts for those, so I could repair it if something happened to it, but I don't want to have to. I really like that handgun, but if I were choosing between those two, currently I would go with the 9 millimeter because it's going to be more controllable, easier to shoot, wider selection of ammunition, on and on and on and on and on. So that would be the one that I would choose, and I would go with the 5943 SSV because it's just a lighter, easier to carry handgun. Tim, some states have to count any vote postmarked on election day or earlier. How many people do you suppose mailed in a ballot on election day? That's got to be a minority. Uh, I actually, for the first time ever, took advantage of the early voting here in Ohio. And about a week before election day, I went in and voted at my local board of elections. So that was kind of nice. I hit it at the perfect time because I went in, there was no line. I went through the check-in process right into the voting booth, voted, and by the time I walked out, which probably only took me 10 or 15 minutes to vote, there was a line out the door and starting down the steps into the board of elections. So I hit that, like I said, it just the right time, got in, got out. And it was nice because then I didn't have to worry about election day if there was going to be a long line or if there was going to be whatever, bad weather or somebody, I don't know, some sort of weird protest that was going to block the entrance or in it. Nothing like that. Voted, done, don't have to worry about it. So that was kind of nice. By the way, I'm zooming through the comments here. As always, if I miss your comment, I apologize. When they start rolling pretty fast here, I'm trying to come down and catch these. So I'm not intentionally ignoring anything you put on there, but if you post something I don't notice it, feel free to repost it. That's okay. User 579, what's the trigger pull weight on the DAO Smith? I want to say around 8 pounds. It's been a while since I weighed it, but I think they were right around 8 pounds. Gix 6, never tried a Smith& Wesson, carried a HK DASA, never had a malfunction. Um, HKs are good guns. The only thing I didn't like about those was that double action trigger pull, which was really, really heavy. What will happen to the House Office of Gun Violence Prevention? Hopefully, that's one of the ones that the Elon and Vivek zero in on that is probably not necessary in the government. I've been talking, haven't even been drinking coffee today. That's how excited I was for the live stream this morning. Big Shug, howdy to you. Happy Hunter, wouldn't be surprised if some Amish voted in or mailed in their vote on election day. We have, I think I've mentioned this in the past. We have a large Amish community here in the county where I live in Ohio. In fact, uh, they are only from where I'm sitting. What's considered Amish country starts about 5 miles south of where I am. Great people. I've been around Amish people my whole life. Some of them own some business. There's an Amish owned gun shop not too far from here that I go to once in a while. But it was nice that I heard that there were a lot of them that were voting. Many times the Amish don't vote for whatever reason, and this time around I heard they were voting. So fantastic. Jeff Tim went on the first day of early voting too. Hardest thing was waiting for a parking space. I got when I went to do the early voting, I got the front parking space right by the door. It was amazing. It was, usually I'm the one that gets there when I go to a store or the mall or something. I'm in the farthest parking space from the door. I practically have to take a taxi from where I park to get to the front of the store or mall or whatever. But on that day, I don't know. I must have done something right that day. I drove into the front parking space, walked right in, voted. Like I said, when I walked out, there was a line, but jumped back in my Jeep and took off. It was a good day. Ben Crane's going to yell at me about the HK. Yakinator, didn't realize you were from Ohio. Are you keeping the dogs and cats? I'm probably 2.5 hours or so from the place where the dogs and cats were in danger. So I think all the ones around here are not going to have any problems. Are you going to test out the M&P carry comp? I don't know. There have been so many other handguns, and by the way, I have a handgun that's going to be coming up for testing here. In fact, if I have time, I'm going to start working with it today. But I'm starting to suffer from what I'm calling plastic pistol fatigue. Uh, there have been so many polymer frame striker fired handguns that are just coming from all corners of the universe, and people are out there reviewing them. This one's going to be the Glock killer, and that one's fantastic, and that it's kind of wearing me out a little bit. I do have, I think, a couple of polymer frame striker fired handguns that are going to be coming in the future. But I've sort of been wandering off that reservation here lately and working with some other things. I really enjoyed working with the DSA 58, the FAL clone. That was a lot of fun. I've been doing some other stuff with the rifles lately, doing the ballistic water testing and that kind of thing. Uh, just because, holy smokes, how many times can you go over a poly striker pistol and say the same thing again and again and again? Uh, Talk about market saturation. And one of the things that I notice, uh, at least with myself, and I don't know if this is the same with all of you out there, is what's starting to catch my eye more and more are these throwback firearms. There is one that I have been waiting very impatiently for. It's on back order. I'm dying. I'm not going to announce what it is yet. When I make the video, I'll let you all know what it is. But sort of these ones that uh, are from times in the past. Something that I thought was really cool back in the day, either because some other department's tactical team had them and my department could never afford them, or maybe a military or uh, not so much movie firearms. My movie firearms, when I get beyond Dirty Harry's Model 29 and maybe Martin Riggs Beretta 92 from the 1980s, there aren't really too many that jump out at me as being very iconic. James Bond's PPK and all of those that I just named are in my collection. But most of the throwback firearms are ones that were actually used either by certain individuals or they have some certain historical significance. Those are the ones that are really catching my eye more and more these days. I added the Military Armament Corporation Model 1014 shotgun last year, kind of for that very reason. The Benelli M4 had been used by the Marine Corps. I think it's still being used by the Marine Corps, and it was something that I thought was kind of cool, and I really like that shotgun. So that showed up in a video not too long ago. But I find myself gravitating more that way rather than waiting on the edge of my seat for the next Poly Striker pistol to come out. And let me zoom down through here because I have missed a bunch of comments. Electric Glide 28, greetings to you in Medina, not too far away, just up the road. Happy Hunter. Yeah, don't think the Harris message appealed to the Amish too much, just based on what I could tell. Rabbi, got to go. Thanks for joining, Rabbi. Have a great day. Thanks, Scott Pressler, for the Amish voting. Howard just cut the voting line. No, I didn't. Chris M, glad you made it. Yeah, we've been at it for 53 minutes here, so we'll keep going for a little while. This has been a great day. Been very entertaining chiming in here, so we'll keep it going for a little bit. Loves Dogs 1954 made it. Glad to see you here. Per IMDBA, the Colt Trooper was what Sheriff Buford Pusser used, aka Joe Don Baker in the movie. Now, do we know if Joe Don used the actual revolver that the real Buford Pusser did? I don't know. Marv Turner also suffering from polymer pistol fatigue. Corpus Biker thinking about replacing the poly frame on your Echelon with a aluminum one from Icarus Precision. Hope you like the Echelon. I tested one of those a while back. That was one of the poly strikers. The thing I really liked about the Echelon was that innovative optic mount that they had. I thought that finally, there's a manufacturer coming up with a way that you can use different optics mounted to the slide without resorting to the whole mix and match mounting plate thing and all that. So I was very happy about that. Unfortunately, that was the only thing that really caught my attention about the Echelon. After that, it was pretty much the poly striker handgun that a lot of people are building. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, Corpus Biker. I hope you like the pistol. I hope it's great. It just didn't do anything for me. Mr. Goldenrod, Ruger P85. I don't know. A friend of mine at my very first police department had a Ruger P85, and I remember shooting that back in the day, and the thing was like a boat anchor. I don't know how much it weighed. It was heavy. It had probably, I don't know, I'm going from memory here, so maybe I can't say the worst double action trigger that I ever felt, but it was a horrendously heavy double action trigger pull. Now, he eventually traded that for a P89, which was a significant upgrade. The trigger was noticeably better. I don't know if the handgun itself was any lighter. It seemed to be a little bit more refined, and that seemed to be a better firearm. But I don't know if I can go with a Ruger P85. James Vatter, plastic pistol fatigue is what prompted me to get a M9 and a P220. Two good firearms. User 579, what was your mom's in the Marines? What? You lost me with that question. I'm not sure what you're asking there. President Trump just landed in D.C. Yeah, I saw him take off a little while before the show started, so it must have taken him about 2 hours to fly up there. Ben Crane, the new gun market is very boring. I know that's kind of where I am. It's like, man, could you guys come up with something different? This one that I have, it's actually off camera here to the left, is something. It's kind of a throwback firearm, so I'm looking forward to that one. It is not a poly striker handgun. Marv Turner had a Ruger P85, traded it for a Springfield in 2010. Jeff Tim, need a pocket pistol comparo. Colt 1908 versus FN 1910 versus Walther PP/PPK. That would be fun. That would actually be a fun video to make. Do you guys see that Walther is coming out with the PP again? They're remaking the PP. That's kind of cool. That's something different. That's a throwback to a very historically cool firearm. Of course, they're expensive as can be. They're upwards of $1,000 or thereabouts, which is the same thing with the new production PPK and PPKS. They're very expensive, but nicely made firearms. I don't know if I could get my hands on a PP. I might like testing that. And I think they're making the PP in both 32 and 380. Okay, there we go. What was my MOS in the Marines? Yeah, so what was my mom's in the Marine? My mom's in the Marine. My mom wasn't in the Marines. No, my MOS was 5811 military police, and that's what I spent my entire time in the Marine Corps doing. Jeff Tim, truly, we've arrived at the lowest common denominator pistols. Yeah, it's funny too. Somebody mentioned this, I don't know, a while back, that it used to be, particularly if you were any sort of an armed professional, if you went into the military, if you're a law enforcement officer, armed security, or whatever, you were issued a firearm and you were expected to adapt to that firearm, whatever required or whatever was required for you to be able to put accurate shots on target. Number one would be to actually train with it, is what you needed to do. Somewhere along the way, that philosophy changed to where now firearms have to be crafted specifically to the individual. You almost like manufacturers have to come up with a model for every single shooter that's going to be out there to be able to shoot how they want to shoot. And anything that requires the shooter to adapt or change or do something different is unthinkable. That's weird, and maybe that's just a reflection of our overall society. Have we seen the same thing with automobiles and I don't know, microwave ovens and whatever else is manufactured out there for people, that it absolutely has to be manufactured to the individual. Bob, what's up with the new 22 Swift? I have no knowledge of the new 22 Swift, so you have to educate me, Bob. Marv Turner might just have to buy one of those Walther PPs. Yeah, yeah, that's just kind of cool. That's what I mean. Something different to catch your attention, because you're going plastic pistol, plastic. A Walther PP. Hey, that's kind of cool. And 32 ACP. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. That's the kind of thing that jumps out of the case at you when you're walking through the gun store, and makes you want to handle it. Jamil has a couple of PPs, one French and one German, both in 32. That's cool. Michael has had no luck getting the lever out. That's too bad. That is too bad. There's I don't know what's happening with firearms distribution right now, but as I said, I've got one that's on back order, and I have no idea when the thing is going to appear. And I think that's happening with other firearms out there, depending on the manufacturer and the distributor. Um, I don't know. It seems like there is kind of a slowdown with anything other than plastic striker fired handguns. Those things are coming by the boatload. Jamil, don't like the beaver tail and the new PPK and PPKS. Um, I do like it, and I know what you're saying. It looks different, um, but having shot the original PP and PPK, and it's one of the few firearms that I would ever get slide bite from. And the new one, and that was actually an innovation that came around when Smith and Wesson was building the PP and the PPK. They lengthened that grip tang, so I don't get that bite anymore with mine. And it's, maybe it doesn't look quite right, but it's a practical addition that I like, and I know not everybody's going to, but I do. Skip Boyer's here. How you doing, Reverend Skip? By the way, I know you sent me a video clip either yesterday or the day before, and I have not had a chance to watch it yet. I was saying at the beginning of the show, I've just been ridiculously busy here the last couple of days, and part of the reason there was no Wednesday morning video today is because I just didn't have time to get one up. Ben Crane, excited we finally have a VP that understands guns and rural gun. Yes, yes, yeah. JD Vance, and it's funny. When I watched his movie, I didn't read the book, but I watched the movie a couple of years ago about his growing up. And he grew up in rural Ohio, just like I grew up in rural Ohio. And there were so many things that were very familiar to me. Now, he's younger than I am. I don't think he's even 50 yet. But still, there were just so many things culturally. Now, my family was not like his family, but I knew people that were like his family. They were friends of my parents. We would go and visit those folks. So, and kids like him would have been kids that I was friends with back in the day. So, I mean, I very much have an appreciation for, I guess, his upbringing and his experiences. Of course, he went into the Marine Corps. First time I think we've ever had a Marine as vice president. Could maybe be first Marine president ever in history. How cool would that be? But yes, understands rural culture, gun culture. Very glad to have JD Vance where he is, and just uh, he's a very well-spoken person and a very sharp person. So yeah, we couldn't have a more seismic shift in terms of vice president from what we've had to what we're about to have. Jeff Tim, back in the 1970s, U.S. Army MPs issued female small grip Smith& Wesson Model 10s instead of the 1911 A1. Um, I remember our female MPs when I was in the Marine Corps. They were carrying the 1911s, but we had Model 10s in the armory, and typically they were issued to our military police investigators and people like that, people that were working in plain clothes. Um, we had the 2-inch versions, and I want to say we had some Colt Detective Specials too. I could be wrong about that, but we definitely had those issued to our plainclothes personnel back in the day. But I don't remember any of the female MPs carrying them. Happy Hunter, the PPK is the famous Bond gun, but the PP, in my opinion, is much better looking and easier to handle. Be saving up for one of those for certain. Yeah, they do look good, and that extra little bit of barrel just gives them a very classic look. Chris M, I passed up a Smith & Wesson 622 for $300 a while back. Anyone have one? Was it a miss? Went home and regretted it. I don't think I've ever shot one of those. I've heard a lot of people say they like them, those and the 422, but I can't say anything about them from any sort of personal experience. Skip Boyer, comment above is in relation to the reason for crafted firearms. I think I missed your comment above. And I'm still not seeing it. Jamil, know the slide bite size. Yeah, it's just that's the only thing about those. And like I said, with that longer grip tang, it takes that away, so it makes it a more pleasant firearm to shoot. Big Shug, all the pawns around me are mostly back to COVID prices for some reason. No deals. I wonder if in the build up to the election, a lot of people were jacking up prices and getting ready for a potential Harris victory. And now maybe we'll see that start to back down some. Could be too. A lot of people were worried about what might be banned moving forward. Now we were talking about lever action rifles a while ago. I would think that would be somewhere down the check sheet on the ban them forever list, but who knows? Maybe they were putting all of their manufacturing capabilities toward trying to churn things out that they thought were going to sell in advance of the election. Bob made a mistake. I meant to ask about the 21 sharp rimfire. Somebody asked about that on the last live stream, and I still have no information about that at all. So sorry, I can't really comment on it. Marv Turner had a PP back in the 80s, would bite me from time to time. Yeah, that was the only thing about those. JD Vance on Joe Rogan is excellent. I think Donald Trump did pretty well too. Ben Crane, JD is a few years younger than me, right at 40. I knew he was young. I wasn't sure how young, but I knew he was young. Skip Boyer, the video I sent was my channel as well. It's on ballistic testing playlist. Okay. I'll try to take a look at that here later on. Can you imagine being 39 years old and being vice president of the United States? I mean, it, it was only a few years ago that he was in the Marine Corps. I cannot imagine when I was 39, all of a sudden being elected as vice president and knowing that under the right circumstances, he could end up being president. That's just amazing. Mr. Goldenrod, waiting to see what position Tulsi will be offered in the Trump administration. And I just heard her speaking a couple of nights ago. So at that time, if she did have any inkling of where she might land, she was not making it known, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see that. All right, Skip, I get what you're saying now about the crafted firearms and the women in combat. Although, there's a lot of men that are, how do I want to say this diplomatically? that are very vocally outspoken about having characteristics of firearms that are or are not exactly to their liking. Ben Crane, the shop I work at, was dead all summer, didn't pick up before the election. We were a bit surprised. I I don't know. I guess everybody was just waiting to see and hoping and praying, and maybe they were worried about what they were going to buy that might be banned. Skip Boyer, did anyone see the assault weapons ban for Illinois was declared unconstitutional? I did not see that. I did not. That's interesting. So, was it made null and void then as a result of the court's decision, or is it still in effect pending appeal or whatever? Bob, I'm 64 years old and my wife is Madam President in our house. Yeah, it's funny how that seems to happen. Make American guns affordable. Yeah. See, now you're going to get me started on another rant here, and that's I know American firearms manufacturers, just like all American manufacturers, are playing on an uneven field with all of the regulations and all of the liability concerns and everything else, not to mention the labor costs. It is more expensive to manufacture firearms here in the United States and remain profitable than it is in some other countries where they don't have the regulations, they don't have the labor costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, don't have the liability concerns. But when I can walk into a store and I can see two guns that are essentially exactly the same, whatever they might be, poly strikers or whatever they might be. And this one is from a US manufacturer and it costs $1,000. And this one is from a foreign manufacturer and it costs $400. And they shoot just as well. It's really hard for me in my mind to justify coughing up that extra 600 bucks than to purchase the less expensive one. And you see on my channel here, I review a lot of things, a lot of products that come from foreign manufacturers that are less expensive. Optics, I love loopholed optics, but holy smokes, $2,000, $3,000 for a rifle scope when I can get one manufactured overseas that comes in and works very, very well for 300 or whatever. Ah, and I don't have a great answer to that. I don't have because I like I said, I know it costs more to make things in this country, but as a consumer, how do you justify that purchase? I think inflation had people spending their excess disposable income on necessities. I think you're right, Ben. That's probably it makes as much sense as anything. Marv Turner, the ban will probably be appealed. I would be shocked if it wasn't, unless it was the U.S. Supreme Court that made that finding. Big Shug, I think you're right, and I think maybe what Ben said up there comes closest to explaining that. Happy Hunter, hopefully tariffs on Chinese steel, we can get more U.S. steel manufactured, more U.S. steel manufactured firearms made up soon. Of course, is that going to make them even more expensive? I don't know. Skip Boyer has a 30-day stay on an injunction, but there was a complete stay on the law. Okay. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Lone Rider, your thoughts on high power clones from Turkey? I think I've only tested one high power clone from Turkey that was a good firearm. I one thing about the Turkish firearms, and I get this information from SDS Imports. I don't think they're all created equal. The importer and the specific uh, requirements that the importer puts on the firearms they're bringing in has a bearing on uh, the quality of the firearm you eventually get. If you remember early on, the Benelli M4 clones that I talked about a little while ago got kind of a bad reputation for their functioning, and that was one of the reasons they were not quite to the standards that they are now. And I know from talking to the folks at SDS that they said when we got ready to import that firearm, we wanted it manufactured to our specifications to make sure we had one that runs. And if mine is any indication, they run very well. The only thing it won't run is really light powered ammunition. And this is a weird thing with shotguns. I don't know why people want to get a semi-automatic defensive slash tactical type shotgun and then complain that it won't run with the lightest bird shot that they can put in. Why would you put that in there? It's a fighting firearm or a defensive firearm. I don't ever plan on running anything in mine but double-aught buck, except maybe occasionally some slugs. Well, number four shot. I'll use number four shot sometimes too, but full power number four shot. So, I'm not going to put light bird loads in that thing and then complain that it doesn't run. But some people do. I that's weird for me. I don't get that. Bob, do you ever trap or skeet or sporting clay shoot? I have done that in my entire life about 3 times, and it's fun. I've enjoyed it, but it's just I'm always doing some other kind of shooting, so I just don't do that. Travis, the Illinois ruling has been appealed, but the ban is still in effect while the approval or the appeal is decided. Okay, that's kind of what I would expect, depending on which court that ruling came out of. Jeff Tim, do you think the new Colt government models are made with foreign parts? I don't know. Since CZ bought Colt, I don't have any idea. Bob, Vortex makes awesome scopes for a decent price. I've tested a few of the Vortex scopes, and from what I can tell, they're decent optics. Happy Hunter. Well, Chief, people will buy $2,000 rifles and run ball in it, and then complain that it shoots over. Yeah, I know. I know. Len Holt, agree. SDS is holding Tizosh accountable. Their customer service is excellent. When I had to send one back, yeah, that recall that they had earlier in the year, where I had to send my Raider back. I said in the video that went about as smoothly as that kind of thing can. I don't like doing it; it's annoying, but for having to do that, and I've had to do it. I've had to do that with Smith and Wessons, had to do it with Remington, had to do it with oh geez, who else? I have had to do that with many firearms from many different manufacturers, and this went back. It was quick. It was back to me within about a week. They paid shipping both ways. The trigger on that thing actually felt better when it came back than it did when I sent it to them. They threw in an extra magazine when it came back. So, I mean, that was nice. For having to go through that rigmarole, it was about as painless as the process can be. Skip Boyer, I have 2 Turkish pistols, and they both are quality pistols. Gerson Regard, Gen 4, and the Rival Dark Side. And this just jumped. Have no problems with them. I was making a new meaning for MAGA. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I if all things were equal, I would want to buy US made firearms, but all things are just not equal. Marv Turner, have a Vortex scope, become a big fan of the Arkin scopes. And I tested that Discovery Op scope recently, and I don't understand the exact relationship between Discovery Opt and Arkin, but people have told me that the scopes are very, very similar, and may have some of the same components, may be made in the same place. I don't know, but the Discovery Op scope was a very nice optic. Bob, have to go. Thank you for awesome live chat. Thank you. Thanks for joining, Bob. Have a great day. ED is here, but he's been lurking. No lurking, ED. That's kind of creepy. What are we coming up on here? An hour and 20 minutes. Wow, it seems like we just started. I think I'll keep things going for another 10 minutes. So if you have any last minute questions, comments, anything you want to throw in on the Trump 1 version of HR's firing line, definitely do so. And I said early on, I don't usually wander too far into the political realm, but I have been so happy this past week with the way the election turned out. And it's been sort of a nonstop national party. And I wanted to get in on it. Thanks to all of you for joining and participating in the live stream. And at the moment, we have 70 people in here, which is fantastic. I have not been paying attention. I don't know what the high water mark was. So we might have had more than that at one point. Tom White missed the beginning, but is here now. Good morning to you, Tom. Chris Am, I'm an old head, I guess. I will shoot irons like Grandpa taught me. Really like to make the switch, but spending more on ammo than optics. But like spending more on ammo than optics. I get what you're saying. As long as you can get by with iron sights, then you're fine. I am to the point you guys will notice recently when I've been doing the videos with the military rifles and stuff like that. I'm either wearing glasses like these, or I have a special set of glasses I'm wearing for shooting to help sharpen that front sight some. So I'm leaning more and more toward optics, both handgun optics and optics on long guns these days. By the way, jumping back a moment to that Military Armament Corporation 1014, I mounted that Olight O sight on there, and I really like that combination. Somebody mentioned recently in a comment to one of the videos that they were surprised that optics like that are not more common on shotguns, and I have to agree. It's kind of reminiscent of the old bead front sight, only now you've got a glowing bead, so to speak, floating there in the middle of your optic window. And that's just really nice to come up and catch that quickly. And you're firing a shot pattern, so it's not a like firing a rifle bullet that's an exact pinpoint projectile, but you're firing that pattern, and it's very fast. I just like that a lot. Big Shug, glad I made it for this one. Not that YouTube sent a note. Yeah, well, that's YouTube. If you missed it, when I very first started the stream this morning, of course, I put Trump 1 in the title of this, and I started the stream and I went and was getting ready and everything, and I came back in and it had like stopped somehow, and I just wondered if that was somebody at YouTube that didn't like the title, so they just turned off the stream, so I had to restart the thing. Gordo Tortuga, got to run. Glad you made it. Good night, Chesty, wherever you are. Hoorah. Mr. Goldenrod, 75,000 subscribers. Yes, we rolled over 75,000 last week one day. Just that is mind-boggling to me to think that 75,000 people have hit the subscribe button for the channel. To all of you who have subscribed, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, whatever you get from the channel, believe me, your support means more to me than anything you might get from me. So I really, really appreciate that. ED uses irons. Good for you, ED. Lucky One, Redfield to me was always the best. Redfield made great scopes back in the day. And I was thinking about making a video. Let me know what you guys think of this. Talking about, and I don't even really have a working title for it yet. This is one of the ones that's just in the concept stage. Talking about rifle scopes, sort of necessities versus trying to think how to characterize it. Necessities versus eccentricities. How's that sound? So many rifle scopes come with so many bells and whistles and reticles you can barely see through because of all the things that are scattered all around in your field of view, and dials and knobs and lights and switches and levers. And all you want to do is put a shot on target. Now, depending on what you're doing and how you're using the optic and what all you're expecting that optic to do, some of that stuff is a necessity for some shooters, where for other shooters, it is just excess. It's just stuff that's on there. And I know for some folks out there, some purchasers, if this optic has more of whatever than this optic, then the one with more of whatever is always going to be the better one. That's somehow going to make them a better shooter than this one that just has a plain duplex crosshair that you put on the target and put shots on target. But I don't know. I was thinking about doing that. Uh, and that's the kind of video I can potentially get blowback from some people. I can get blowback from professional shooters, from snipers, and say, oh, we need all that stuff, or the F class long range crowd or whoever. And for some shooters, all those various articles and artifacts and this and that and switchers and levers and everything else are going to have a use. I think for the majority of shooters, that's probably just extra stuff on the optic that's going to drive up the price that they're never going to get any benefit from. Joe Palu from the Ohio Veterans Home in Sandusky. Thanks for joining, Joe. Necessities versus niceties. Yeah, I don't even know if we call them niceties. Like I said, it's almost like necessities versus accessities. Because for some people, it's not even a nicety. It's just something that's there, like I said, that they'll never use. As I said, that's sort of just in the concept stage right now. I haven't really fleshed out the idea to decide how I want to go with that kind of a video. Marv Turner would prefer a simple crosshair reticle, no illumination, but that's rare these days. You can find them. In fact, I was looking on Optics Planet the other day to see. I had an old 4-power Simmons rifle scope on a 1022 rifle for years and years and years and years. And I've still got the thing. The scope still works fine. The rifle was always decently accurate. And I thought, I wonder if they still make these things. And sure enough, I found it on Optics Planet. They cost, I don't know, $60 or something for a fixed 4-power scope. There's no variable magnification or anything like that, but they actually still make them. Still has the same old simple fixed duplex reticle. So they're still out there, but there are definitely a lot more of the elaborate optics these days than there used to be. James Vatter has one of the old Redfields, nearly 50 years old, on a deer rifle. Now there's a classic combo, the old Redfield on a deer rifle. Does yours have the round field of view, or is it the TV screen style that they used for a while? Got drug all over Alaska without issues. That's one of those, if only it could talk. Big Shug, can't agree more. Run irons on 90% of all your handguns, all your shotguns, and beater daily rifle. Optics are on name brand builds. Now I have scope fatigue. Make accessities a word. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Tony. The elevation, if you use them enough, if you're well enough acquainted with your scope to be able to use those, and you either have a rangefinder or you can estimate your range, and you know the trajectory of your cartridge and how it's going to correspond with those elevation lines, that can be helpful. But again, you have to work with that system. It's not something you can just guess one day and hope for the best, or at least you shouldn't. And Ben Crane is headed out. See you, Ben. Have a great day. Wow. And that I said I was going to go for another 10 minutes, and that 10 minutes has already expired. So I guess I'm going to start to wrap it up. Thank you to all of you for joining today in the Trump 1 edition of my firing line. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for 12 plus years of support here on the channel. To my channel members, thank you for that donation you make every month. By the way, YouTube is back into that thing where they're demonetizing everything I put up. I had one just today that I checked, and they it's funny because they've got this thing on there now where they tell you, you click on it and it will tell you, it doesn't tell you what in your video got it demonetized, but it'll tell you where in the video that the thing occurred that got it demonetized. So I clicked on this one today that was demonetized, and it said throughout the video, or throughout your video, which I take as we threw out your video. So it tells me nothing. There's nothing in there that I can figure out that should have caused that video to be demonetized, but it was. Anyway, to my channel members, thank you for your donation, because when YouTube gets into that period of time where they're demonetizing everything, that really, really helps to make sure there's still some money coming in so I can try to keep getting content produced to put out for all of you to watch. Have a great day, everyone. I hope the party continues. I think there are great things coming for our country. Let's go. Let's watch Donald Trump make America great again. And until next time, everyone, good shooting and bye-bye for now.